So I want to get this back to this grass-fed thing because
Yes.
I said I just watched Food Inc. and I'm big on the grass-fed meat right now for many reasons, health reasons. It's better for the environment, all kinds of stuff. That's what cows are supposed to eat, so it's better for the cows, et cetera, et cetera. So the Scott's company, which created modified Roundup-ready Kentucky bluegrass, is going to be doing field trials with this stuff. And we've got a quote from GMO Free on why this is bad. So they're saying that GMO Roundup-ready grass will result in a further increase in the use of Roundup, which will contaminate our groundwater and drinking water. Imagine your children and pets frolicking around in a sea of herbicidal poison because of inevitable contamination. The grass is likely to be eaten by grass-grazing animals. So basically what they're saying is that this company is going to make this grass. The grass is going to be more resistant to the chemicals, so they're going to need more chemicals, and that chemical stuff is just going to get all over the place. Did I basically get that?
Yeah, I mean, again,
right?
It's like that fear-mongering with the word. Sure, that fear-mongering with the word chemical is like so insane to me. I recently did a podcast on my podcast, Talk Nerdy, with a doctor named Kevin Folta, who is an agriculture scientist at the University of Florida, and he studies transgenes. He works with strawberries. By the way, no GMO strawberries. Did you guys know that? There's actually not that many GMO crops on the market. No such thing as a GMO strawberry or tomato.
Really? But am I mistaken? All bananas are GMO.
I'm not sure if that's true, but like all corn is true. Like corn and soybeans,
well, corn,
for sure, and wheat.
Everything's corn. Everything we're wearing in this table,
everything is corn. Yeah. So anyway, and so I agree with you. I like the idea of grass-fed meat. I also like the idea of having a better grass.
Right.
So
a better grass that needs less water. I mean, there are reasons that...
Sure, and there's reasons that we use Roundup.
Yeah.
Roundup-ready crops are able to not die when you use this herbicide that kills the things that can infect the crop, that kills the things that can take over the crop yield.
Yeah.
You spray the crop with Roundup, the crop lives, everything else dies, so you have a good yield of that crop. Now, there's not much evidence out there to support these claims either that glyphosate, I can never fucking remember. Glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup, it is going to have any sort of detriment to groundwater, any sort of it's specifically these things, often the herbicides and the pesticides that GM crops are kind of made to withstand. The herbicides and pesticides have been tested safe. It's not DDT. These are things that we use in every large agricultural complex. They're big farms that are constantly sprayed with these things, and you only need a very small amount of them because they're Roundup ready. Yeah. If they weren't Roundup ready, we'd have to use massive amounts of herbicides. Because these are Roundup ready crops, we can use a tiny amount of Roundup and kill off anything that the crop is not resistant to.
Okay, so that's exactly obviously why I wanted to bring this up with you to clear up some of the science. So you, as the news person of this, and this goes to one of the topics we were talking about earlier about Ebola and the hysteria and all this, there's so much hysteria related to GMOs, which is why I think when we started this, you were ready to pounce immediately because it's so polarizing for some reason. I can already see what's going to happen in the comment section here. So how do we get some of this across? I think we kind of cleaned it up here, but it's not. This is our food source is so important, and yet it's never talked about.
I think what's most important is awareness, and that's where we're really failing. So at the moment, we can't even we don't even have like rules or regulations, robust regulations across the country that tell us what's in our food and what's not in our food, and that I think is where we can make a huge impact. It's not in eliminating GMOs or eliminating such and such chemical. It's about understanding GMOs, understanding chemicals, and then informing the consumer when they're in our products.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I think that, with the labeling initiatives, whether it's a GMO or not, we need to go significantly further. We need to talk about how far does our food travel to get to our plate, what other kinds of ingredients are put in our food that are able to be veiled under the label artificial or natural ingredients. So now these food companies don't even have to tell us what they're putting in there. There's a lot of other things. But
doesn't the labeling get too crazy also because there's so many labels and you're never sure what is actually
well, that's
legit
because it's not
natural thing that
it's not regulated right now. That's part of why it's so crazy. And I just want to make one last point because it was glaringly obvious to me. Some of the text that you were reading on that screen, there was one thing about there's never been a GM crop that's been proven to improve yield or improve health or safety. It said something along those lines, which is also a bold-faced lie.
Right. I mean, we have a lot more corn, whether you like it or not.
Well, yes. But also, let's kind of travel back in time very quickly to the 1970s when scientists developed golden rice, which produced more beta carotene. It produced more of vitamin that individuals in impoverished nations didn't have access to. And the idea was, if we plant this rice, which is a staple crop in these nations, instead of the nutritionally kind of vacant rice that they're eating right now, we're going to see massive improvements in health and human safety. And Greenpeace, which is an organization that I typically back, Greenpeace was so up in arms about this that they essentially stopped the golden rice program. And there have been lots of studies to show that millions of lives weren't saved that could have been, because we did have a viable option, a viable GM crop that could have saved lives, and the red tape got in the way.
Yeah, all right, so that's a perfect segue to my final thought on this, which is we talk about the big business end of it all the time. So we can't talk about GMOs without talking about Monsanto. So just literally in like a minute, is this just another, so Monsanto basically, they're forcing, if I understand this correctly, they basically force farmers to use, they've copyrighted, because the Supreme Court allowed them to do it, they've copyrighted these crops and they're forcing farmers to use them.
How do you force somebody to buy your product?
They literally have inspectors that go around to make sure that their seeds aren't being used, that other seeds aren't
if you purchased it, if you're somebody who purchases a Monsanto seed and plants it, you can plant it. If you're somebody who didn't buy their seeds, then you're not allowed to plant their seeds. Right, that's the way it works. If you sell a product and you can't steal their seeds.
So you're cool with their practice?
No, I just think that also the lawsuit side of things is really overblown, and a lot of times, if you really dig into the research, the only lawsuits that have actually made it to court and where Monsanto has actually had a win are places where they were able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that farmers were using Monsanto crops without purchasing them.
Right.
So in the farmers' defense, some have argued that, you know what, I didn't want to use this crop, but hello, like, seeds fly. It's the environment. We can't contain everything. And now that the seed has reached my fields, it's overtaken all my other seeds, and I'm forced to use it.
But there's not been a lawsuit that's actually come to fruition that shows that. So it's you hear the chatter about it, but nobody's actually been prosecuted for that.
Yeah, it just seems kind of messy, and from the way I get it is sort of, I would always side, I guess, with the farmer that he's on the land sort of controlling his crop.
Me too. But the truth is, most farmers that use GM crops and use Monsanto crops purchase them because they work. And they purchase them because it's cheap and they're able to make a big yield because of it. They're not being forced to buy these crops. They can buy other seeds. They choose to buy Monsanto seeds.
Yeah. All right, well, I have a feeling we're going to have a big yield in the comment section on that one, because I know what this topic brings up. So seriously, let us know. We'll do this again in a couple weeks, and I want to keep the discussion going on this stuff, because that's how important I think the food source conversation is, and the whole thing.